Detective Eleanor Rowe was used to strange cases, but this one felt different. There was something unsettling about the entire situation, a quiet presence that seemed to hang in the air, even as she stood in the center of the small, dimly lit apartment. It all started 2 days earlier when the local police received a distressing call. A missing person case involving a prominent local historian named Gregory Harrow. Harrow was a well-known figure in the city, respected for his work on the city's history and its founding families. His sudden disappearance didn't make sense to anyone. But when Rowe looked into it, she quickly discovered that the case wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. Day 1. The disappearance. The morning she was assigned to the case, Eleanor stood before Gregory Harrow's front door, its brass number 402 slightly tarnished by years of exposure to the elements. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. No signs of a struggle. No broken locks or windows. Just an empty, meticulously kept space. But as Eleanor scanned the living room, one detail caught her eye. An old map spread across the coffee table showing an intricate layout of the city, but with several locations circled in red ink. At the center of the map was a building no one had heard of before. The Blackwell Archives. She turned the map over. On the back in neat handwriting were a few words. Midnight. The silent hour. Eleanor knew something was off. She had seen plenty of missing person cases where the signs were clear. A fight, an argument, a kidnapping gone wrong. But this case felt like something deeper, something older. She needed more answers. Day 2. The Blackwell Archives. That evening, Eleanor stood before the Blackwell Archives. The building was unremarkable, a small, square structure hidden away behind a row of towering office blocks. There were no guards or security cameras, just an old wooden door that creaked when she pushed it open. Inside, rows upon rows of dusty bookshelves stretched toward the high ceiling. Most of the shelves were filled with books on history, folklore, and ancient texts. But Eleanor's eyes were drawn to a small, isolated section at the back of the room. There, beneath a thick layer of dust, sat a collection of journals. Journals that seemed far older than anything else in the room. As she pulled one from the shelf, the faintest creak echoed through the air, as if the building itself was alive, groaning with age. Flipping through the journal, she found it filled with cryptic notes about rituals, disappearances, and strange occurrences linked to the founding families of the city. One entry stood out. The silent hour is upon us. When the clock strikes midnight, the veil thins. Be prepared, for some things are not meant to be uncovered. Eleanor's heart raced. The date on the entry matched the night of Gregory Harrow's disappearance. Day 3. The truth unfolds. Back at Harrow's apartment, Eleanor scrutinized the map again, tracing the locations marked in red. One stood out. A small, unassuming house at the edge of the city, a place she had passed many times but never thought much of. Tonight she would go there. Midnight would be her moment of truth. As the clock neared the witching hour, Eleanor stood at the front gate of the house. It was completely dark, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. The door creaked open as if waiting for her. She stepped inside. The air was thick, charged with an unnatural energy. A staircase led her down into a small cellar. There, at the center of the room, was a large wooden chest. It was old, ornate, and sealed with a lock, but the key was lying on the floor beside it. Trembling, Eleanor bent down to pick it up. As she turned the key in the lock, a sharp sound echoed through the room. The chest slowly opened, revealing a collection of dusty relics, ancient books, strange trinkets, and in the center, a small, weathered journal. It was Gregory Harrow's. She opened the journal to the last page, which read, "The silent hour is not a time, it is a place. Those who seek the truth will be lost to it." The cellar door slammed shut behind her. The silent hour. Eleanor struggled against the darkness that enveloped her. The room seemed to stretch and twist, and for a moment she felt as if she were floating. Time no longer made sense. She could hear voices, distant and familiar, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make out the words. And then, as the last stroke of midnight passed, everything stopped. The cellar was empty again. The chest was gone. And so was Gregory Harrow. The next day, Eleanor returned to the Blackwell Archives, but the building had vanished. It was as though it had never existed. All that remained were the bookshelves, empty and abandoned, gathering dust. The case was closed, but Eleanor knew the truth. The silent hour was real. Some mysteries were meant to stay hidden, protected by time itself. And the people who sought them were never meant to return. But one thing lingered in her mind. Had Gregory Harrow truly disappeared, or had he become a part of the mystery, trapped in the silent hour forever? He would never know. Some questions, she realized, were better left unanswered.